Welcome to Witchership by Design, the podcast where we call out old patterns, dismantle the conditioning of a patriarchal society, and reclaim the power that was never meant to be given away. I'm your host, Michaela Stone, behavior analyst, human design strategist, lifelong nomad, and professional life untangler. Here, the conversation is spicy, guided by a no-bullshit, wise woman perspective that says what needs to be said. This podcast is for those who are done living under invisible rules that keep them running in ever smaller circles, and who are ready to design a life that actually feels like their own. Through solo episodes and conversations with guests who are magical by practice, magical by nature, or a powerful blend of both, we explore the many pathways to personal sovereignty. If you're ready for truth, transformation, and a little witchy wisdom along the way, you're exactly where you're meant to be. Let's dive into the witchy shit by design. Welcome back to Witchy Shit by Design. I'm your host, Michaela Stone, and it is my pleasure and delight to be here because I just love doing this podcast. So, can I ask you something? Have you ever made a decision that made perfect sense? It was logical until it didn't make perfect sense. Maybe it was a program you signed up for or a job you accepted. Maybe it was saying yes to something when every part of your body was kind of saying, no, don't do it. At the time, your brain overrode what your body was telling you. It seemed obvious that this was a good choice. So you had your reasons, you thought it through, you even explained it to other people. Ah, the beauty of logic. And then a few days later, or maybe even a few weeks later, you probably found yourself wondering, what the hell did I do that for? Why did I make that choice? Oh boy. Now, before you start telling yourself you made a bad decision, okay, it feels that way, but let me offer you a different perspective, a different possibility. What if that bad decision wasn't actually your decision? So stay with me here. I'm not talking about someone forcing you to make a decision. That's not what we're talking about. But what about something more sneaky? Like when you're in a room with a lot of people around you, you might feel different. You might have your mother's opinion. You might have your partner's expectations going on. The boss is sitting at the table. Your fear about money is pulled up in a chair. Your inner good girl is taking notes, right? All of these things can happen in the room and you're just left with, what do I do with this? Scarcity. Scarcity shouting at you from the corner. And the people pleaser keeps trying to make sure everybody's happy. Somewhere, almost hidden behind all of those influences, is your own wisdom, what you actually know to be true, if you get out of your own way and listen long enough. Because if you stop and actually ask yourself, what do I think? Not what I think even, it's what do I feel? Because it's about how you feel. Your body tells you when you're making a good decision and when you're not. But it's not in your head, right? Your head is full of other people's opinions, full of things that make sense, but you can build a beautiful path that's very logical and it'll take you to a swamp, not a beach. It's still logical. It still makes sense. It didn't take you where you wanted to go. So this is something I see so often. I'd go as far as to say I come across it all the time. Someone tells me that they're having a hard time making a decision, and within about 5 minutes, they have listed off what their husband thinks, their best friend thinks, their other coach thinks, what their accountant said, what the internet is saying. And somewhere in the middle of all of that, they got lost. They completely forgot to check in with themselves. I find it fascinating. It's kind of sad, but it's so ubiquitous, beautiful word, but it's so prevalent for everybody that it's also fascinating. because we've become so accustomed to outsourcing our certainty that we mistake other people's confidence for our own truth. I'm going to repeat that sentence again because I think it's important. We have become so accustomed to outsourcing our certainty, we're looking for other people to tell us, that we mistake their confidence for our truth. And that is a problem. Right now, it's getting worse. I mean, have you noticed how everybody seems to need an answer immediately? There's the whole scarcity thing of, answer now or it's gone, there won't be any left. Or even when it's a text message and somebody gets bent out of shape because you didn't answer them within 5 minutes. That is a particular pet peeve of mine. And I can tell you, if you text me, I probably won't answer you within 5 minutes, but I'll get there. Chill. So these emails, they're urgent. The sale, it's going to end tonight. The opportunity, it's once in a lifetime. You've got to take this or else you'll be missing out, FOMO, right? Every social media advertisement that you see has a countdown timer attached to it. It's wild. It's like pressure, pressure, pressure. Your boss wants an answer by lunchtime. Your family wants to know what your plans are for Christmas, which is great, but it's June. Like you don't know yet, maybe. So even choosing which loaf of bread you want can somehow feel like a massive, overwhelming task because we're inundated with information. I mean, you turn on social media, the first thing you're going to see is stop what you're doing. Don't do that. You're doing it wrong. You got to do it this way instead. And it's just pressure. Oh my goodness, it is pressure. I mean, we're living in a world that rewards speed, but wisdom isn't in a hurry. Wisdom takes time. And we'll get to human design in a minute, but wisdom is something that you need to allow for, you need to give space for, not prod it and say, hurry up, how long is it going to take? That's not how it works. So today, I want to untangle something that I think affects pretty much every decision we make. How do you know when you're making your decision and when you're simply carrying someone else's emotions into the room? You are operating from their feelings, not yours. Stay with me. I'll explain it. Because once you can tell the difference, everything changes. So hang in there. Imagine your mind is a boardroom, a really big boardroom. There's a long table, everyone's got coffee, somebody's fiddling with the eternal PowerPoint, and don't we all love those? And they're all waiting for the meeting to begin. The agenda at this boardroom meeting? Your next decision. Now, here's the interesting part. Most of us think there's only one person sitting at that table, the decision making table. We think it's us. But it's not just us. There's usually a whole cast of characters in the room. You've got fear. Now, come on, everybody's got that going on. Fear likes to sit right at the end of the table where everyone can see her. She has a very loud voice, and she's absolutely convinced that every decision is life or death. You're either going to be afraid of the past or you're afraid of the future. But, oh yeah, you've got it going on. And then you've got the good girl. Well, she's a sweetie, very polite, doesn't want anybody to be disappointed. And, you can tell where the good girl is when she says things like, well, if everyone's happy with that, if everybody likes that decision. And then there's the people pleaser. The good girl and the people pleaser are cousins. The people pleaser has one job: keep everybody comfortable. Except you. Like, you don't have to worry about you. It doesn't matter if you're miserable, just as long as everybody else is okay. And then scarcity walks into the boardroom. I hope you're still with me. I'm building a scene here. Scarcity is dramatic. She bursts through the door yelling, "This is your only chance. You've got to do it now. If you don't decide today, you'll miss out forever. You'll never get another opportunity like this. etc., etc. She is exhausting. And then there's another voice that doesn't get talked about very much, but pretty potent voice. Obligation. Now, obligation doesn't yell like fear does. Nope. Or scarcity. Nope. Obligation sighs. Well, you really should. They've done so much for you. It's the least you can do. People are counting on you. Do you like that one? Uh-huh. It's a very persuasive little voice. And before you know it, everyone around the table I've just described for you, is having a heated discussion about your life, except for the one person who actually matters. You. You don't seem to be talking about it at all. Or more specifically, your inner knowing. You're allowing the noise in your head to take over. And why? Because you've lost yourself. You got lost in the room. You can't hear yourself over everybody else's opinion. And here's where it gets really sneaky. Sometimes those opinions aren't even being said out loud. Not anymore. Nobody has to tell you to work harder. You'll do it automatically. No one has to remind you not to disappoint people. You know that. You've internalized it. Nobody has to pressure you to say yes. You already have it on automatic, don't you? It's called conditioning, where the outside voices become your inside voice. But it's not really yours. It's not helping you at all. So, have you ever noticed that when you're perfectly happy with the decision, everything's great until you tell somebody, like you've decided to leave your job. You tell your parents or your partner. Now they're anxious, right? Oh no. But what happens if that's a terrible move? What happens if you never get another job, etc., etc.? Now you're anxious. You were fine until they put their 10 cents worth in. You looked for their approval and they weren't able to give it to you. So maybe you've decided to invest in something that feels really exciting. You tell a friend. They're nervous about the money you're spending. Now you're questioning everything. Nothing actually changed. The opportunity didn't change. Your finances didn't change. They're exactly the same as they were when you made the decision. Your intuition didn't suddenly disappear. Nope. The only thing that changed was whose emotions were sitting in the boardroom. Who were you paying attention to? I see this all the time. Someone will say to me, I don't know what to do. And then I'll ask them why. And for the next 10 minutes, they will respond with everything that everybody else thinks. My husband, my sister, my other coach, my colleague, Facebook group, accountant, neighbor, Joe Blow and the local dog, like everybody has something to say. Eventually, I have to interrupt them. Not particularly because I'm being rude, although, I'll just leave that one, but because I genuinely want to know something. What do you think? Do you know what happens? Silence, even confusion. What do you mean? I was just telling you. No, you weren't. You were telling me what everybody else thinks. What do you think? And maybe at that point they realize, oh, hey, nobody's asked me that in a very long time. Or perhaps, being even more honest, they don't ask themselves. And that is where decision fatigue really begins. We're exhausted, not because we're making too many decisions. I'm not sure that that's true. But I think it's because you're trying to keep everybody else happy while simultaneously convincing yourself that you're making a decision that's true for you. And you can't do that. It's not possible. Something has to give. So guess what gives? It's you. Now you've got a boardroom full of opinions, fears talking, the good girl wants everyone to be happy, the people pleaser's making tea for everyone. Obligation is reminding you of all the reasons you should, shoulding on you like a champion, and somebody throws open the door. Scarcity walks in. Oh, now, here we go. I already mentioned scarcity, but this one keeps popping up at just the wrong time. One of my least favorite people. She doesn't knock. Scarcity doesn't wait her turn. She storms into the room carrying a giant countdown timer. They're terrifying kind. Everything's urgent. Everything's your last chance. Everything has to be decided today. Have you noticed how much of life feels like that these days? Your inbox is full of it. Your social media is full of it. Only 3 spaces left. Doors closed tonight. My inbox is full of it. I don't know about yours. This price will never be offered again if you don't act now, etc., etc., etc. Now, to be clear, sometimes things really do have deadlines. They have to have. You got to get to your flight at a certain time or your flight's gone without you. Applications do close. Yep, that's true. And life happens. I'm not saying urgency never exists. I'm saying we've become so accustomed to urgency that we don't think to stop and ask if it's ours. Is that my urgency I'm responding to? It's a pretty good question, and it's a really important distinction because somebody else's urgency does not automatically mean it's your emergency. So think of that again. Someone else's urgency does not automatically become your emergency. It's so important to remember that. Imagine I'm selling you something. Of course, I'd like an answer today. That'd be really cool. That serves me very well. It doesn't serve you, though. Not necessarily. I mean, it might, but probably not. How often do we regret those hasty decisions? Maybe your sister rings you. I need to know today. And maybe she genuinely does. Maybe she doesn't. Maybe she just wants to know today. That's not the same thing. So before you answer that question, you need to ask yourself another one. Do I actually know what I want to say yet? Do I really know my answer? Because there's a world of difference between somebody else needing an answer and you being ready to give one. I think one of the greatest acts of self-authority is being willing to disappoint someone else's timeline. Not because you're being difficult, not because you're trying to, exert power or something, but because you've finally realized rushed decisions often become expensive decisions. Expensive financially? Sure. Expensive emotionally? Oh, hell yeah. Sometimes it can be expensive for years. So, can I tell you something that I've noticed lately? The decisions I have made in my life that I regret, I try not to make too many of those, but hey, I'm human too. The thing that I've noticed about those is they have something in common. I responded, or rather, I reacted when I felt rushed. And that's really important. There is a difference between a response, which is where thought is involved and checking in is involved, and a reaction where you do the thing that you think is required of you. It's a very different thing. So sometimes, it can be another person rushing me and I let them, or it might be a sales page and it's just, ooh, I really don't want to miss that. Sometimes it's fear, that FOMO, it comes up. And sometimes I was just rushing myself. Like I didn't have the patience to stop and really check in. I mean, yeah, I admit it. It's true. So while I may have responded or reacted like there was a prize for being the fastest decision maker in the room, I gotta tell you, there isn't. In fact, I found it's almost opposite to that. The wisest decisions in my life haven't necessarily been the quickest ones. They've been the ones that had room to breathe, room to really look at pros, cons, considerations, is what I like to call it. You look at the entire thing, not just one snapshot of it. And sometimes, going for a walk or sleeping on it, asking questions, asking better questions, those kind of things can help you with your decision making. They can help you time it as well. Sometimes you got to change your mind like 3 times. It's just that you forget urgency doesn't allow for intuition. Urgency doesn't allow for that inner knowing. You have to have time. So It really is important. It can feel like, oh yeah, I've got this big decision and I'm going to go for it. My intuition says this is a great idea. Um, does it though? Are you sure that's what you're listening to? I'm going to question that and say, no, it might not. How do you know? Well, urgency feels kind of tight, like restricted. You got to do it. You got to rush. Whereas your intuition, it's a knowing. You're aware that, oh yeah, this lands, this tracks. This kind of language comes up for you. So while it might feel similar at first, give it a minute, and you're going to realize that, no, actually, it does feel different. Intuition needs you to wait a minute and consider. Urgency is really pushing the envelope. So notice the difference. Intuition isn't a panic. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't shoot everybody else down in the boardroom and like, shut up, everyone. I know what I'm talking about. Nope. It's a knowing. Fear shouts. Scarcity shouts. Your nervous system, when it's dysregulated, shouts. But your inner knowing, that thing that you can tap into if you just give yourself a chance, it's pretty quiet. You don't need it to be loud. So if your boardroom is full of everybody else's voice, you're probably going to miss that inner you. And that's such a pity because you lose trust in yourself then. You look for external validation to say, well, am I right? Is this a good idea? What do you think? And your poor intuition gets, I don't know, stuffed under the sofa or something. It's just like, it's lost, right? The voice gets quieter and quieter. And you become an expert at hearing everybody else. So I would say your own voice hasn't disappeared. It's just been talked over so much that it's kind of sitting in a corner sucking its thumb. So before you make your next big decision, I'd like you to try something. When you feel that pressure rising and your chest gets tight and your brain starts racing and you're having these thoughts of, but what if I miss out? What if it's gone? Oh no, help, help. Don't ask yourself, what should I do? But consider who's talking, whose voice is up and active for you right now that's making you so panicked, so sort of concerned about the decision making. Is it the fear, scarcity, good girl, people pleaser, any of those? Or is it actually you? And because once you can tell the difference, you stop giving all those voices an equal vote. They don't actually need a vote, right? You can consider their words if you like, but they don't get a vote. No. So this is where your decisions change. And I'm going to mention human design. I said earlier that I was going to get there, and I am. So if you're thinking, here comes the woo, how on earth are you on this podcast listening to me? I don't know about that. But stay with me here, because whether or not you've experienced human design before, I'm going to tell you it offers incredibly helpful insight. It gives you permission to stop making decisions the way everybody else shoulds on you by telling you what you should. And human design is basically your blueprint in life. It's how you work when nobody else is interfering with you. It's how you flow, how you know that you're in the right direction for you. It's all of those things. Human design, what I love about it the most, is it shows you what's right with you. And those things that you do effortlessly and you think it's not a big deal, oh, it's easy, everybody can do it. No, actually, that's not true. It's your gift. You just think it's insignificant because it's so easy. But the reason it's easy is because it's your gift. We could keep going on this one for a while. So, thinking it through, being logical, making it make sense, these things are used with other people's information. It's not yours. So, if you're really considering something and you're just paralyzed, right? You got that whole decision paralysis going on. You can try a few things. Make a pros and cons list, like I mentioned. Research it. By all means, ask for advice, gather more information. Sure, all of these things are good to do, but at the end of it all, check in. How do you feel about it, though? Is it exciting? Does it light you up? Is it still lighting you up the next day? Because here's the thing, if something is for you, it'll be there. It'll wait. You don't have to, charge around rushing before things disappear. It's not pie. Things are out there. They're going to stay around. Your brain is brilliant at generating possibilities. And it's absolutely brilliant at finding all the reasons why you have to do something. You should, you ought, this kind of language. What it can't do very well is generate certainty. And that's because, well, certainty doesn't live there. You didn't hear it in the boardroom either, right? I mean, think about the last time you made a decision and you figured it was right. And it turned out to be right. It felt right. Yeah? Maybe it didn't look so good on paper, though. Can you remember it? Is it one that you reached a conclusion about with looking at a spreadsheet or, listening to somebody else's sage wisdom? Or was it something that you had a feeling about? Maybe you felt a sense of relief when you made that decision, or excitement. Maybe it was just all the noisy voices quietened down, finally. That's your authority according to human design. I don't really care what you call it. You can call it your inner wisdom, your regulated nervous system, your gut, spirit. But sure, pick a name. It's not really the point. The point is, you can collect information. You can ask brilliant questions. You can spot patterns. Mine does it brilliantly. You can imagine the possibilities. All those things, sure, I do them. But what it can't tell you, your brain, is what's aligned for you, what's correct for you. That's something that your inner knowing tells you, and nobody else has access to that. So the thing that I find fascinating here is that most of us have spent years strengthening the wrong muscle. We've become experts at reading the room. Oh yeah, we can tell when somebody's disappointed before they even say something. We notice the change in someone's tone. You can sense the tension, anticipate conflict. Some women can practically predict an argument before it happens. Yeah, that's quite a skill, but it's also a big cost. Because if you're constantly reading everyone else, when are you reading yourself? If you're always scanning the emotional weather outside, how do you notice the emotional weather inside? I think this is one of the greatest challenges for women who have spent years people pleasing. You've become fluent in everybody else's emotions. But, I mean, when your partner's stressed, when your child is overwhelmed, when your boss is anxious, when your friend needs reassurance, absolutely. But when somebody says, and what do you want? Do you have an answer? Probably not. And it's not because you don't have a want or something you'd like. Nope. It's because you've spent so long translating everybody else's needs and requirements that you've forgotten your own language. It's not a character flaw, it's conditioning. And that's where human design gave me one of the biggest sighs of relief, because it reminded me that I don't have to make decisions from my head. In fact, I'm not really supposed to. My head's wonderful company. We hang out together, yeah. Curious, creative, connects the dots that other people miss, absolutely. But it is not a particularly good CEO. It wants another meeting, another opinion, another spreadsheet, another late night Google search. Meanwhile, the quiet part, the one that, gets overlooked a lot, is sitting there with, we already know. I have the answer over here. Got it. Have you noticed it though? So you make a decision and you spend 3 days or a week, whatever, trying to convince yourself out of it or into it. Something. You're trying to convince yourself one way or another because your mind started holding another committee meeting and suddenly fear had another idea. Scarcity wanted to have another look at the budget. Uh-oh, you overlooked something. The good girl was worried about somebody being disappointed by this decision. You get the picture, right? The expert has another article that you need to read. The perfectionist, oh, you just got to do this other thing first. No wonder we wake up exhausted. I'm feeling exhausted just thinking about this. And overthinking, we tend to think is important. We give it this space and call it wisdom. It's not the same thing, no. Overthinking is often what happens after wisdom has already spoken and not being heard or not trusted. So perhaps the real work here isn't learning to think better, although, yeah, there are some people that could do with that, but let's not go there for a minute. It's not learning to think better. It's learning to hear yourself more clearly. Because I do honestly believe that your inner knowing has been speaking all along. We all have one. The question is, can you still hear her over the board meeting that's happening in your head? So if you've listened to me this far and you're thinking, yeah, well, that's all very well and good, Michaela, but what do I actually do? How do I fix this? Well, great. I'm glad you asked. Because I don't think the answer is to become a perfect decision maker. In fact, I don't think that's possible. Like, we're human. We can't do that. So we'll still make decisions that don't work out and still say yes when we really wish we'd said no. And we'll still get it wrong sometimes. That's not the problem. The problem is making decisions that were never really yours to begin with. So I'd love to leave you with something I've started doing myself. When I notice that familiar feeling, that tight chest, the racing thoughts, the need to know, the pressure to answer, like, ooh, sometimes it's out of your mouth before you've even realized that you're about to speak. So rather than asking myself what I should do, I try to remember to get curious. And the first thing I want to know is, who's talking? Whose voice is that? Is it your mother preaching caution? Is it somebody in the boardroom getting noisy? Is it obligation that's getting in the way, tripping you up and keeping you away from a really good decision? Or is it actually you? Is it really what feels good for you? This is important to figure out. So the next thing that you want to do is buy yourself some time. Not to avoid the decision, but because you need space to make it. You need space to truly honor your real decision. So when people push you, hurry up, make a decision, it's got to be now, all those things. See what they say when you say, well, thank you, but I need some time to think about that. And just watch the hoops they jump through trying to persuade you that you don't have time. It's not true. It's a fallacy. You have time. So you're not rejecting somebody when you say, I need time to think about it, but you are giving yourself space, a gap, somewhere where you can actually sit down and just be with that decision. We're obviously talking big decisions here, not like what's for dinner. But another thing to consider is, who benefits from you not taking time to check in with yourself? Who is going to do well from your decision being rushed? It's not you. That's the newsflash. So who is it? Because people who really respect you can usually tolerate you taking some time. People who need your immediate answer are typically people who expect your immediate answer. They assume that you're going to say yes, that you're going to do the thing. And that's not because you're so special. That's because you've taught them that you have a pattern of saying yes without really thinking about whether it serves you or not. So consider that, and consider decisions you've made recently. How have those landed? And here's another question for you. If nobody else knew about this decision, would I still make the same one? Just sit with that for a minute. If nobody knew, nobody had an opinion, Nobody had anything to tell you about it. You were just like in a vacuum, if you will. Would you still choose it? Sometimes the answer is going to be yes, but sometimes it's a very uncomfortable no. And when that happens, there's some really valuable information there for you. So, your next question really is, whose emotions am I working from? Like, who is this that I'm trying to navigate? Because it's not you, right? If you're saying yes so somebody else won't be disappointed, that's not alignment, that's doormat. If you're making a decision because you can't tolerate somebody else being in discomfort, well, also that's not intuition or alignment, is it? If you're rushing because someone else is anxious, okay, but that's not your problem, it's theirs. You're dealing with emotional management, and it's not your emotions you're managing, it's theirs. So it's a full time job, and you didn't apply for it. So why would you keep doing it? There's something I like to say that I think belongs here too. Discomfort isn't always a sign that you're making the wrong decision. Sometimes it's simply a sign that you're making a different decision from the one that everybody else expected. And there's a big difference. I have a story where someone once asked me to teach a module for her in a course that she put together. And she was absolutely certain I was going to say yes. And so I was very aware and very conscious and really thinking about it. And I said, thanks for asking, but no thank you. And it cost me something to say that. I felt super uncomfortable. And I was a little afraid of what she was going to say in response. I mean, you can tell this was a while ago now, but I remember it vividly. And her response was to look quite stunned and kind of gobble like a goldfish for a few minutes. Well, maybe a few seconds. But she sort of looked around her like, where's my solution? Where's my solution? And finally managed, well, what do you mean no? This is perfect for you. You'd be so good at it. And I said, well, I really don't have the time, and no, I don't particularly want to do it, but thank you. And 18 months later, she's still not talking to me. So that's something that you got to be prepared for too, is that making your true decisions and actually saying no sometimes, you might lose a few people along the way. And newsflash is they were only there while you were convenient. So maybe that's not such a loss after all, right? My life is no poorer because this person no longer talks to me. She only talked to me before because she wanted my help. Why? Because she thought I was mug enough to do it. So, that's something that you might want to consider for yourself. Where are you being taken advantage of? Where somebody just thinks, oh, yeah, I'll ask her. She'll say, yeah. Yeah. So that boardroom, send them all home. Let them leave the room one by one. Give them a seat somewhere else. Like, however you want to do it. I like to visualize this sometimes so that they all get out of your way. And now you can ask yourself the question, not the simple question, not the you know question that you would normally ask from other people's perspectives, but it's the one, what do I know about this? What do I feel? And it's not because you'll necessarily get it immediately right, but because you'll build your confidence when you make your decisions your own. It's really important to try this and just spend some time with that, work on it, and the more you do it, the easier it gets. People very often say, well, no is a complete sentence. How often do you hear somebody say it, though? We always have an explanation afterwards so that other people feel comfortable. Just consider where you're still saying yes so that other people are comfortable. I hope that this monologue of mine has given you a different way of looking at your own decisions, and I would love to hear what you think about it. If this resonated for you, and it wasn't too long, then please do share with somebody you think would like it or learn from it. And remember that the loudest voice in the room is not necessarily the wisest voice. Sometimes your inner knowing is just waiting for everybody else to stop talking. So I will talk to you again on Witchy Shit by Design. And thank you for hanging out with me today. Take care.